Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is WireDogSec, back with another video for you guys. And before we get into it, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new here, hit the like button if you're enjoying the content, comment below your thoughts and opinions on the information discussed, etc., etc. Today's video, we're going to take a look at this print nightmare room inside of TryHackMe. Now, this vulnerability was pretty big back in 2021. I remember when this came out, it caused kind of a ruckus in the cybersecurity world because it dealt with the print spooler service. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. All right, y'all. Now this is a free room on TryHackMe, so you can follow along here, or you can go and try out the room yourself, or you can just use this video as a refresher. So we're going to take a look at these two vulnerabilities here. As you can see at the top there, CVE 2021-1675 and 34.52.7. Task number 1, Introduction. This room will cover PrintNightmare vulnerability from a offensive and defensive perspective. So looks like we're gonna be doing a bit of purple teaming here. Per Microsoft, remote code execution vulnerability exists when the Windows Print Explorer service improperly performs privileged file operations. An attacker who successfully exploited this vulnerability could run arbitrary code with system privileges. An attacker could then install programs to view, change, or delete data, or create new accounts with full user rights. Learning objectives in this room, you will learn what Print Nightmare vulnerability is, how to exploit it and mitigate it. You will also learn the detection mechanisms using Windows event logs and Wireshark. Outcome: as a result, you'll be ready to defend your organization against potential print vulnerability attacks. Learning prerequisites: you should be familiar with Wireshark, Windows event logs, Linux fundamentals, and Interpreter prior to joining this room. So if you're not familiar with any of these, go ahead and check those room outs beforehand and then come back here. All right. Now, task number 2 here, it's going to be talking about the Windows Print Spooler service, apparently. Now, I'm going to skim through some of this because this is a lot of reading, and if you want to go ahead and read it, go ahead and check out the room, or you can just pause the video and read the text yourself. Microsoft defines Print Explorer Service as a service that runs on each computer system. Basically, it controls like the printing, like print queues and stuff like that, scheduling, yada yada yada. You're able to start, stop, pause, resume the Print Explorer service by simply navigating to the services on your Windows system. And that's any type of service on your system. You just go to services and take a look at what's listed there, and it's got highlight there, Print Explorer. Print Explorer properties. Go ahead and pause the video, take a look at that picture there. Print Explorer service makes sure to provide enough resources to the computers that send out the print jobs. Remember the early days when users had to wait for print jobs to be finished to perform operation? Well, the Print Explorer service took care of this issue for us. Allows us to allows the system to act as print clients, administrative clients, yada yada yada. Pause the video and read the rest there. Domain controllers mainly use Print Explorer service for pruning, the process of removing the printers that are not in use anymore on the network and have been added as objects to Active Directory. Pruning eliminates the issue for users reaching out to non-existent printer. You will know soon why we mentioned domain controller is awesome. So, you know, if you can compromise a domain controller, you pretty much own their entire network. Now, the first question here is where would you enable or disable Print Explorer service? And that's going to be in the services as we saw up here above. Start, stop, pause, whatever. You're going to look at services tab. Now let's move on to task number 3 here. Remote code execution vulnerability. To better understand the PrintNightmare vulnerability or any vulnerability, you should get in the habit of researching vulnerabilities by reading Microsoft's articles on any Windows-specific CVE or browsing through the internet for community and vendor blog posts, and that is absolutely true. Any type of vulnerability that comes out, you want to learn more about it, go ahead and do some Googling and find out what you can do for that vulnerability. And it's talking about those two before I mentioned CVEs. They go in the same name, Windows Print Spooler Remote Code Execution Vulnerability, are both related to the Print Spooler service. Let's talk about this first one here. Is similar but distinct from the vulnerability that is assigned to the 1675. The attack vector is different as well. All right, so that's good. You get to explore both of these apparently. What does Microsoft mean by the attack vector? To answer this question, let's look at the difference between the two vulnerabilities. Timeline of events, per Microsoft's definition, remote code execution vulnerability exists when the print spooler service is improperly I already read that earlier. Run arbitrary code, system privileges. Attacker could then install programs, do whatever they want, basically. Running arbitrary code involves executing any commands on the attacker's choice and preference on a victim's machine. Suppose you had a chance to look at both CVEs on Microsoft, you would notice that attack vectors for both are different, so go ahead and check that out if you haven't done so already. And it's talking about the 1675 one. It's a local attack vector here. We're going to use a DLL file to escalate privileges for 1675. And then the other one is going to be a network, which is remote code execution. And then they get the timeline here. Pause the video, take a look at that. And then, okay, let's answer some questions down here below. Let's see, what makes PrintNightmare dangerous? It can be exploited over the network. Attacker doesn't need access to the machine. That's an RCE. The proof of concept was made public on the internet, which it did happen, probably on Twitter. They like to release a lot of proof of concepts on Twitter. The print service is enabled by default on domain controllers and computers with system privileges. Awesome. Provide the CVE for the Windows Print Spoiler Service remote code execution. It doesn't require local admin permissions, and I believe it was this long one here. So go ahead and type that in there, and there we go. What date was the CVE assigned for the vulnerability in the previous question? This is answered in this here. As you can see, it's going to be July 2nd, 2021, as listed here, right here. So that's going to be answer that one. Now let's move on to task number 4. Try it yourself. All right, so we get to do some practical hands-on stuff. So I'm going to start this machine here, and then I'm going to start the attack box as well. You're probably going to need it. Be sure to start up your machine that you're going to use for this particular section. To understand how the attack works and what logs and events are generated, you need to put the black hat on and run the attack on your own. But of course, it requires permission from management to perform this attack in your environment. Yada, yada, yada. Fret not, you can perform the attack against a task virtual machine and not in your employer's environment. So we're going to do that. I already started the virtual machine, spinning it up right now. So follow the steps below. To exploit the domain controller using the attack box by exploiting PrintNightmare vulnerability. Sample terminal output below. Victim's going to be that. Attacker's going to be that. So whenever it loads up, let's see, blah, 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 blah. Let's clean up attack box. So I got to do some stuff on this attack box beforehand. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and do that. And then we're going to jump back into this section here where we're going to actually launch the exploits and such. Okay, now I've already done this, downloaded in packet, and also the exploit we're going to use. I already created this PN directory and the shared directory, as you can see right here. It's on my desktop. And be sure to follow these instructions to do the same thing. And it's going to want us to use our IP address for the attacker box or your OpenVPN IP address, and then also the victim IP address, which is the target machine. And this is mine here. Yours will probably be different. It wants us to go into MSS Venom and create this DLL that we're going to use in the attack, which I have already done. Let me show you that real quick here. As you can see there, I already ran the command and saved it as malicious.dll. Now let's scroll down here. It wants us to fire Metasploit, which I've already done as well. And we're going to go ahead and run these commands and options and such. So let's continue off of here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this to make everything easier here. Copy this and paste it into the attacker machine here. So I'm going to use this. All right, and then we're going to use this payload here, verse TCP. Make sure you're doing the same thing as I'm doing here on your machine, whichever one you're using here. And then set L host, and then set the L port, which is going to match whatever you set earlier. All right, mine's going to be 10.10.192.9, and then set the L port to 444.4444. Awesome. All right. And then it's basically just showing you the screenshot of what it looks like whenever you set everything correctly. Next, run it. So it will actively waiting for a connection, and you're going to run that as a job, which is that -J option there. You'll learn that in the Metasploit room, I believe. Right, it explains it there as well. And it says here, you can use the jobs option to list jobs. There it is, right there. It's just waiting for us to connect back. Right now, you'll need to host the malicious DLL in a SMB share running on the attacker box. We'll use the attacker box in this example below. It's how you use the SMB server.py from mpacket. Awesome. So we're going to get back into this PN directory here. Let's see, which one did I have that in? I believe it was this one. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to go back one and run this command here. See if it works. I'm just gonna copy and paste it. All right. Get this out of the way here. Awesome. Now we're cooking with grease. Okay, it says a brief explanation of the command in the above image. It tells you what everything means here. So pause the video, be sure to read that. And before we blindly just exploit the target, let's first examine the target, see if it fits the exploit criteria. So we're going to run this here. It's already got it typed out for me, so I'm just gonna copy and paste it and see if it's actually going to be vulnerable for us to take a look at here. So we're gonna go back into that area there. So I'm just gonna open another tab here. Awesome, I'm already in there. Cool. So I'm gonna copy and paste this line into the terminal section here on the attacker box. Go ahead and launch it. See what it does. Awesome. Looks like it's good to go. It's finally time to run the exploit. Navigate to the location where you downloaded the exploit code from GitHub, which should be the root, desktop, pn, cv, blah, blah, blah. We use Python script to exploit the PrintNightmare vulnerability against the Windows 2019 domain controller. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to copy and paste all this stuff in here, make it easier. Of course, I'm going to correct that IP address there. So let's see here. I believe it's in the same directory. Yes, okay. So I just need to go back into it here. Awesome. Did ls and there it is. Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy and paste this into this here, and then replace this with the actual attacker box IP address, 10.10.192.9. All right, now we got that in there. Let's go ahead and paste it. All right, now let's see if it works. It says failed to enumerate. Okay, brief explanation. Go ahead and pause the video and read that. If all goes well, you should see a similar output below. All right, so I'm going to see what I did wrong here and then try to fix it. If you ran into the same issues or errors that I did, be sure to check the forums and also do some Googling, and you'll come across a GitHub page with an error message listed on there, and it tells you how to do the fix. Basically, you're going to uninstall Impacket, and then you're going to install it their way. And also, you're going to have to move that exploit file, that Python file, into the impacted folder here and then launch the exploit itself. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's not going to find the file. Anyway, so I did it, launched it, and there's a bunch of errors here you'll get. So just ignore that according to the instructions here. It says ignore that. And I was able to get a interpreter session, as you see there. So we're going to go ahead and interact with that. Session 1. I also have that link posted to that GitHub fix if you run into this error message. All right, now let's see where we're at. Print working directory, and wants us to find a flag in the administrator's desktop. So let's go ahead and do that. CD again, and let's see here. Awesome. Okay, so let's go into the users, right, and then ls, and we're going to cd into administrators. Awesome. ls again, and then we're going to cd into their desktop. ls. Awesome. There's the flag right there. So go ahead and just cat that file flag. And there's the answer to that. Go ahead and copy and paste that into the answer box on the TryHackMe page. All right, then we're going to move to the next section here. Okay, got that in there. Awesome. All right, continuing on to task number 5. Task number 5, indicators of compromise. Now be sure to pause the video and go ahead and read all this. It's a lot to read here and to take in. Let's imagine the worst case scenario that the THM department was compromised a couple days after the POC PrintNightmare was released. You're the threat hunter. Your company suspects an attacker used PrintNightmare to access the domain controller. You're going to provide evidence IOCs. Basically, you're going to find the IOCs and locations and what they're using. You're going to go in here and you're going to look for the indicators of compromise in regard to this particular exploit. It's going to tell you which particular directories to look in, how to set up particular rules and alerts and such in SIM tools such as Splunk, etc., etc. So the attacker most likely will use RPC dump.py, which we used earlier to find vulnerable hosts. And then we also created that DLL file, and it says more specifically, the exploit code will call the PC add printer driver X function from the authenticated user account and load the malicious DLL file in order to exploit the vulnerability. The PC add printer driver X function is used to install a printer driver on the system. It says Signia shared some advanced threat hunting tips for detecting PrintNightmare, and it tells you this information of what to look for on those machines. Fine. Let's still drop to one of these folders. So there's the first folder here, and you may want to also look at this other folder there. Hunt for suspicious spool, sv.exe, child processes, CMD, PowerShell, etc. Mimikatz, print driver name QMS 810 will be created. Logging the registry, sysmon ID 13. Some more DLL stuff here listed there, and it's giving you the Splunk information there. Look for new printer drivers, child processes, suspicious processes, run DLL file, command line arguments, detected. The plugin has failed to load, and then it's got some other stuff here about Splunk if you're interested in checking out Splunk. It's got other rooms here you can look at. Anyway, first question is provide the first folder path, which I saw above was this one here, and then that function, which I saw above was this one here, add printer driver X, and then the tool we use to scan for vulnerable print service is going to be this rpc dump.py. Now let's move on to task number 6. All right, y'all, we're back in action here with task number 6, detection Windows event logs. And I have already started the machine that we're going to use here, and let's get down into it. Windows event logs are detailed records of security system and application notifications created by the Windows operating system. There are some logs that record events related to principal activity. Still, they may not be enabled by default and need to be configured using the Windows group policy or PowerShell. The logs related to principal activity are these here listed. Now, I'm not going to go over all of this here. Be sure to read it, pause the video and read it, or just go to the room and read all this. I'm just going to kind of skim through this stuff here. We can detect PrintNightmare artifacts by looking at the endpoint events or Windows event logs mentioned above. You can look for the following event IDs, and it has them listed here. It says you can also use Sysmon to detect PrintNightmare terror. And it's got the stuff here. Now, I recommend using Sysmon in your environment if you're not using it already. It's a lot better than Windows event logs. It's like basically Windows event logs on steroids. So if you're not familiar with Sysmon, be sure to look into that and get educated on how to use that, play around with it, etc., etc. You are still in the middle of hunting or for the THM department to determine if PrintNightmare attack actually took place. Armed with all the knowledge above, can you detect PrintNightmare? And it says start the attacker box. It's already done. And we're going to get a split screen here, and they're going to answer these questions below. Provide the name of the drop DLL, including the error code, no space after the comma. Provide the event log name, and the rest of them you can see there. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to get into the split view, and then we're going to take a look around and to see if we can find these particular items here. All right, y'all. Once you have the machine started up, you're going to click that show split view so you can get into the actual box itself. Now, when you get into it, you're going to want to go ahead and launch the event viewer, click it on the start menu, and then event viewer. I already have it pulled up here. Once you do that, you're going to want to right click somewhere in here and then click create custom view, which I have already done. As you can see there, PrintNightmare. And we're going to take a look at what I did here inside of this particular filter. So I'm going to go to properties and edit filter. And all I did was I went in and I put in all these event IDs you can see there. And also for event logs here, I clicked this down arrow here, went into the actual settings of what I want to look for, and I went and check marked several different ones here. I check marked the print service, admin ones. You see there's print service, right? Click the plus sign, admin operational, and then also the, I believe it was, yeah, SMB client, drop down, and then security. So once that's done, you hit OK, and then you should be able to find this event here that comes up, and it wants us to find the DLL that was dropped. You can see it there listed out, and to get into it, you can just double click on it, and then that's the one you want right there. So we're going to go ahead and type that in, svc h0st.dll, and it says including the error code, which is going to be the 0x45A. Awesome. Provide the event log name and the event ID that detected the dropped DLL, and that's going to be, it's looking for this log name here. So we're going to type that in here. Microsoft Windows print service admin. Spell Microsoft correctly. Awesome. Find the source name and the event ID when the print explorer service stopped unexpectedly. How many times was this event logged? So let's go ahead and try that. All right, you may notice that I have more logs on here, and that's because I did not have some filtering selected correctly. So had to go back in, right click it, hit properties, edit filter, and I had to select all these event filters and then also select the correct event logs in here. So let's go back and review real quick. Make sure Windows event logs is selected. System is the one you want to check mark, and then under applications and service logs, go back and double check that. Make sure under Microsoft Windows, and make sure the print spoiler stuff is selected here. So scroll down here. Oh yeah, print service. Make sure all that's selected correctly. Scroll down some more, and you're gonna make sure SMB client is selected. Everything in there, and then sysmon. Make sure that's selected as well. All right, now back to the logs, and let's see. You already found these. Uh, let's see. Print service. Yeah, drop DLL was that one, and it says sprint folder to stop unexpectedly. That's going to be a failure, and that event ID that you're going to be looking for is going to be the 70. What was it here? The 7031 here for Windows System. And to find that, you can just go to click on Find on the right pane there and type it in 7031. Find next, and it should find it. Yeah, event ID 7031. All right, print spoiler service terminated unexpectedly, and that's going to be the information you need for there. And there's only one in here, as you can see there. And also you can just next through it too, and it's just going to go back. Yeah, see, search. That's it. Now continue on to the next one here. After some threat hunting steps, you're more confident now that it's PrintNightmare attack. Hunt for attacker shell connection. Provide the log name, event ID, destination port. Now that's going to be for another sysmon log, operational. All right, and it's going to be this one here, network connection. So let's go and find that. Okay, so there's a bunch of them in here. And we're going to go back and reference the IOCs. All right, you're going to look for this run DLL, or search for all these DLLs actually, and see if you can find any that come up. And the one that you should see should be this run 32 DLL that's in here, right here. So you can go to find right there, type it in there, run DLL 32.exe. It's going to search. Okay, it found it. This one here. Let's go ahead and open it up. All right. Okay. So you're gonna go through and look at the information in here, and then find the correct ones that you need. So we already got event ID 3, right? And it's run DLL 32.exe for under image, and it wants us to find the destination port. All right, there's the IP right there, and let's see here, destination port 4747. There you go. Okay, and this next one is, oh no, you think you found the attacker's connection? You need to know the attacker's IP address and the destination host name. In order to terminate the connection, provide the IP of the attacker and the host name. Okay, and you already have that information up in here, right here, 10.10.210.100, and it wants us to find the host name as well, and that's listed here. So you're gonna need that information, right? And that's it for that one. Let's see here. And the last one is a sysmon file create event was generated and logged. Provide the full path to the drop DLL and the earliest creation time in UTC. Okay, so it wants us to look for these file created events, right? So let's see if there's an easy way to do that. Let's go back and reference the stuff up here. File create 11. So let's go ahead and try to find that. For that last one here, you're gonna have to go through and look for this spoolsv.exe service that's going to be starting that malicious DLL that we had discovered earlier. All right, so we're gonna find one of these event logs that has this in here, this svc 0st, .dll host or DLL in there. So you can go through and sort. Machine expired. Awesome. So let's see here. Click next. And eventually you'll come across the one that you need. All right, let's see here. Now I'm going to try to open this up in a bigger window. Now that the screen is a lot bigger and easier to read, you got to go through and look for that particular DLL that was loaded by spool SV or XE, and you'll come across it in here eventually, and you get the information that you need: image, target file name, stuff, and the creation time. All right, now let's move on to the next task. Okay, task number 7, detection, packet analysis. We're going to get into some Wireshark stuff here. So if you're not familiar with Wireshark, be sure to check out the Wireshark 101. As usual, I'm going to skim through this and pause the video. Make sure to read all this thoroughly. All right, if you're unfamiliar with any of this. And we're going to hop into the task files. Packet captures, PCAP, play a crucial role in detecting signs of compromise. If you're not familiar with Wireshark, check out that room there. Detecting PrintNightmare attacks, specifically those two CVEs that we're looking at right now. It's not an easy task. Inspecting artifacts like Windows event logs on the victim's machine. The attacker relies on adding a printer driver using DCE RPC commands. This print add driver or print add driver X, and it tells you what DCE RPC stands for. It gets into some more stuff in regard to those drivers mentioned beforehand. It says that according to Corelight, it can get even harder to detect, especially if the exploit wraps the DCE RPC calls in SMB3 encryption. To identify the encrypted DCE RPC calls, you need to somehow decrypt and decode the payloads, which is time consuming. Corelight also released the Zeek package to detect the print drivers, etc., etc. Attaches the PCAP, which I've already downloaded on my machine, so we're going to open it up in Wireshark and take a look at the stuff here to find the information or the answers to these questions here. Domain controller, local admin, user count, yada, yada, yada. So let's get into it. All right, back to the PCAP. I have it pulled up here in Wireshark, as you can see here. So let's answer these questions. First question is, what is the host name of the domain controller? All right, since we're looking for SMB traffic, you can type in SMB. Right, you already have some stuff here that's pulled up. And it says that this win-10 yada, yada, yada is going to be the domain controller right there. So you can go ahead and open that up as well and look at some more information in here. Host name, you have it right there. Okay. And let's see here. What is the local domain? Since we're looking for SMB stuff, you can use the filters, or you can just scroll down to the section where it has like a ton of SMB traffic down here, right? And you can get the domain right here. This PrintNightmare.local. So to answer that question, the next question is, what user count was used to exploit the vulnerability? Well, it's going to be low privilege right there. What was the malicious DLL? And as you're sifting through this traffic here, you'll come across that answer under here. This letmein.dll is going to be the malicious DLL. Now, what's the attacker IP address? Well, that's going to be this 2.36 IP address. You scroll back up a little bit more here, you'll see that it actually initiated the request, as you can see there, right? And let's see, what's the UNC path where the malicious DLL was hosted? And we already saw that below. Scroll down some more, and that's going to be this one right here. All right, this /10 dot whatever shares. It says there are encrypted packets in the results. What was the associated protocol? That's going to be SMB3, encrypted SMB3. So that's the answer to that one. Now, let's move on to the next task. And this is what it looks like after you get everything that you need in there. See, the domain controller is going to be that win dot whatever. Local domain, as we saw, was that printnightmare.local, and then the account that was exploited was this low privilege Larry, and then the malicious DLL is going to be that let me in. Attack IP address is going to be that .236, and then the UNC path is going to be that there, and then the SMB3 is the encrypted packets. Now move on to task number 8. It says mitigation, disable print spooler. It was not just a nightmare, and now you are 100% confident that it was a PrintNightmare attack on THM department. You check the other domain controllers on your network and it appears that they are clean. It is not the end of the world just yet. You can still mitigate or defend against this by disabling print spooler on all domain controllers and modify the registry settings if applicable. How can you do it? Microsoft has provided steps, yada, 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 disable them. Go through and do this stuff as administrator. Do that as a PowerShell. There's option 1, disable the print spooler service, stop, set. It's got a bunch of other stuff in there for mitigation steps. You can go go ahead and read all of this. I'm not gonna read this step by step. Go ahead and pause the video or go ahead and take a look at the room and read it yourself. Get familiar with mitigation steps. So let's move down to the answers below. Provide 2 ways to manually disable the print spooler service. Okay, well, let's look at the first one. Right, as you see there in the information, you can disable it via PowerShell commands, right? Or you can do it through GPO, and that's going to be the answer to that one. And it says, where can you disable the print spooler service in group policy? So let's go back up here, and it's going to be this right here. So copy and paste that in there, and then provide the name in PowerShell to detect if a print spooler service is enabled or running. That's going to be that get command up above. So let's move on to task number 9, conclusion. Congratulations, you have reached the final chapter of this room and saved the THM department from the horrors of PrintNightmare. I really hope you enjoyed this room and learned some useful defense techniques in order to prevent and respond to the PrintNightmare attack in a timely manner. Here are some additional resources for your detections. So go ahead and take a look at these resources as well. And that's the end of the video. All right, if you guys enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the content. Hit the comment section below. Have you experienced this vulnerability in your career in the real world enterprise environment? Have you exploited this in a like penetration test or anything like that? Be sure to comment below. As always, thank you for watching. Have a nice day.